we're essentially self-funded at this point. We've started to do some fundraisers. The thing that's been beneficial for us is we have very low overhead. We're essentially acquiring all of our items for free by as I call it, high-level dumpster diving. We're just taking what's otherwise garbage. We pretty much provide our own, it's all volunteer-based.
You're listening to Parallax from Radcliffe Cardiology in association with makeadent.org. Here is your host, Ankur Kalra, MD.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Parallax. This is a warm and a special episode for me because I have on the show my colleague, Dr. Courtney Maxey-Jones. She is the director of Coronary Care Unit or Cardiac Intensive Care Unit at Upstate University Hospital. She is a cardiac anesthesiologist extraordinaire by training. She also is the founder and the chief operations officer for GOMED. It's a nonprofit or not-for-profit organization which has an incredible mission, which I sort of identify with because of the work that I've done in India. And this organization is trying to repurpose devices which, for whatever reason, do not find use in the US. And sort of through the aegis of this organization, Dr. Maxey-Jones is facilitating delivery of these devices to the developing world where, as we know, having access to these devices can be life-saving. So with that introduction and without much further ado, Courtney, welcome on the show. Thank you so much for doing this for us. It's great to have you on Parallax.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and mainly the opportunity to get GOMED's name kind of out there more. The background, as you said, I work at SUNY Upstate, and I also spend some time at Wilson Hospital in Binghamton, New York. And that's where kind of GOMED was initially born from, we'll say. My two partners in this not-for-profit are Farhan Nadeem, who's a cardiac surgeon originally from Pakistan, and Connor Wasilnak, who's a physician assistant. And it was kind of through just observation. We were doing a cardiac case one day, and we noticed the amount of kind of garbage we were creating, not only garbage that we were creating, but things that were just going to waste due to expiration dates or different surgeons' preferences. One surgeon would come, would then potentially leave the organization, and all of his preferences for cannula or suturing or whatever it may be, they would no longer have a use, and they were just going in the garbage. And then we also noticed that were many things that we were using as single-time, one-time use, and then putting in the garbage. But in discussion, we noted that in other countries, a lot of these expensive devices are actually used over and over again. So that's where the idea came from. And what we've now done is we've reached the point where we're collecting expired, surplus equipment, all in the cardiovascular space, cardiac operating room, EP lab, and cath lab. And we've managed to get quite a number of hospitals. We're expanding out from just the Northeast now, receiving incoming what is essentially a valueless equipment for hospitals in the U.S. We're actually, in one argument is we're saving them money because otherwise they're paying to dispose of it. And then we're able to store it and then ship it out to various countries, low and middle income countries with needs, and as well as support medical mission and education trips.
This is fascinating. So I'm going to get into the weeds of how you operationalize this because, this is sort of a high level understanding of what GOMED does. When you came up with the idea, what was the first step that you took in order to get in touch with? I mean, I'm assuming that the very first step would be to start becoming more aware of waste happening at your own organizations. How did you then team up with, leadership or with the operations teams at your respective institutions to sort of form a repository of such equipment?
Because we actually thought about it for a while and didn't really immediately progress to doing it. We started thinking about it, and what that gave us the opportunity was to do a couple things that I think have strategically helped us. We were diligent in the initiation, meaning we officially registered ourselves. We're a 501c3 official not-for-profit organization. So that helped us gain legitimacy when working with the hospitals. And then we additionally took some steps just through some contacts with, I have some lawyer friends, and I had them help draft for us some of essentially legal documents that provide. We're very well aware that there would be liability concerns from hospitals in releasing equipment that is not safe due to expiration dates to us. So we drafted up some documents that we were able to provide to hospitals that essentially say, we at GOMED are taking responsibility for your donation, and we promise that these devices will not be used in humans within the United States. So we essentially prepared ourselves so that the hospitals could feel comfortable releasing themselves from any liability. And then at the same point, we subsequently drafted a letter that when we send out shipments clearly says, like, user beware, these are deemed expired or surplus or are one-time use devices, which you may elect to re-sterilize, reprocess, and reuse. However, we defer to your own local standards and release and subsequently GOMED from liability. And then beyond that, once we had those in place, it sort of started as I'll say almost like a grassroots operation. We started collecting supplies first from Wilson Hospital in Binghamton because that's where we were. So we had the OR collect, kind of the off-pump stabilizers that otherwise get used once and go in the garbage. We just saved them to the side. We talked to the perfusionist about not tossing out extra aortic cannulas. We then went to the cath lab and talked to the kind of people in charge of their store and stocking there and said, hey, if you've got stuff that's going to get thrown out. And then we ended up working our way up to talking to the actual hospital supply chain folks and saying, hey, when you get rid of stuff that's surplus or expired. And now we essentially have an area where if anything at Wilson Hospital is about to go in the garbage, I just swing by and literally pick it up, put it in the back of my SUV and drive it to where we now have a storage facility where we actually inventory it with the help of an inventory management software system. And we're working on having on our website almost you can get a login if you obviously prove to be a legitimate organization. You can get a login and effectively, order what you want from what is our available stock.
So in terms of funding the nonprofit, when you have a repository of these items, are you then shipping them at subsidized rates, or is that a mechanism to sort of fund the effort from in terms of the operationalization of this entire cycle? How do you fund it is the question. Are you then selling these items at subsidized rates, or is it just shipping costs, or?
Yeah, so we're essentially self-funded at this point. We've started to do some fundraisers, but the thing that's been beneficial for us is we have very low overhead. We're essentially acquiring all of our items for free by kind of, as I call it, high-level dumpster diving. We're just taking what's otherwise garbage. We pretty much provide our own. It's all volunteer-based, so we don't have any employees or anything like that. And then our major cost is just shipping. So what we're doing right now is when we ship something out to an organization, we ask them to support us with the shipping cost and reimburse us for the cost of shipping. What's been nice as well is that we can even sometimes get around that by connecting. I one time went to a meeting in Boston and flew to Boston with 2 huge suitcases full of equipment that I handed off, that then was subsequently handed off to a surgeon that then flew back to Columbia to use it. So we've gotten involved with the Global Cardiovascular Collective, which is sort of a network of like-minded charitable cardiovascular foundations, and we're working with them to kind of help distribute and kind of even transport, when possible, a lot of these supplies. But there is no cost to. We give them all free of charge to mission trips and or locations that are in need. So we do not charge any receiving organization anything other than we ask for support in the shipping cost. We are working to set up a donor advised fund for GOMED, which then we're hoping that if we just get enough kind of money in there through donations and we're self funding our own not for profit, that then we'll be able to have a donor advised fund where we may be able to become completely self-sufficient and require not even support for the shipping that we do.
Yeah, no, I think donor advised fund is a good financial decision. Running a nonprofit myself, I think is a good financial decision to becoming self-sufficient. Um, Let me ask you, this is I'm thinking through this, and congratulations again for all the work that you're doing. Is there any science behind expiration dates for equipment? I mean, is this something that is made up, or something that is regulated or mandated by the Food and Drug Administration, or are there any evidence based, I want to say, policies out there which you've come across, or is this just man made?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of what we're doing in the US is I'm not sure that there's evidence behind it that something is fine today and tomorrow it's expired and no longer safe to use, especially because a lot of the devices that we're using or that we're focusing on, these are not necessarily implantable or going to be left within the body. So these are diagnostic catheters for the cath lab. They're cardiac stabilizers for in the operating room. So I think we're kind of slowly identifying that perhaps this may be one of I don't want to, not to politicize this, but maybe this is part of the cost of healthcare in the US is that we keep huge amounts of equipment on the shelf that then reach an expiration date because the FDA says that they have expired without a whole lot of evidence to support that. And so what we're finding is many other countries, some countries, and frankly, I think it depends upon their need severity. Some countries do not care at all about what the expiration date is. They will accept the donation as this is better than the alternative is nothing. And then other countries are a little bit, they'll say that they will accept things that are within 6 months of expiration or 1 year of expiration. So we're kind of learning it's very much a gray zone as to what's really, what the rule is versus what the safety and evidence suggests.
Yeah. So in thank you for clarifying that, because I just, now that you explained it, that was a natural question. I do know that in the developing world, certainly in India, there are many cath labs which, quote unquote, autoclave, some of the equipment, for example, coronary guide wires, or even, uh, you know, angioplasty balloons, certainly not stents because, they get implanted, but, balloons and wires and, even balloon pumps, have been autoclaved and reused in the cath labs in India very safely. And, I've encouraged my counterparts in India to accrue safety data and sort of put it together systematically and publish, because it's going to help not only, labs in India, but, elsewhere in the developing world, and also US, because there is a lot of, like you said, costs keep going up. There's a lot of healthcare waste, and there's a lot to learn from other parts of the world where, because of necessity, there's innovation, right? Um, and can help us lower some of these costs. So, in terms of shipping equipment to other parts of the world, what all countries have you worked with so far through GoMed?
Well, we've had kind of two different ways that we've approached it. Some is direct contacts with surgeons and cardiologists in those countries. We've supported cardiac surgery in Pakistan and in Colombia directly with connections there. And then we've also had multiple shipments go out for various mission trips and medical education trips. We've sent a lot of equipment to SAMS, Syrian American Medical Society, and then they've used that throughout their kind of networking. And then we also have supported multiple trips into various parts of Africa. So we're kind of slowly working up our distribution channels. We send along kind of besides obviously the release of liability, we send some pictures, with GOMED's logo on it. And we are starting to receive back pictures of, like the cardiac OR in Colombia doing surgery with our off-pump stabilizers and holding up a sign that says, thank you, GOMED. And same thing for some cardiac surgery going on in Pakistan. And so we're slowly kind of reaching I'll say our tentacles out. It's a little hard to exactly track because we sometimes are supporting one foundation, which then may be having multiple different trips to Tanzania or Ghana or that. It's a lot of sub-Saharan Africa as well as Pakistan and Colombia are the main locations. The other thing that we found to be quite useful is especially for some of the devices that we're more concerned, they're implantable, they're expired cardiac valves. What we found is another way that we can utilize them is we've been able to donate them to some training labs, even within the U.S. With Johns Hopkins, we were able to donate some valves, mitral valves and mitral rings for them to be using in their simulators. So we've kind of realized that maybe what we're doing at a level is turning, the proverb of turning one man's trash into another man's treasure. And so what we're finding is anything that we do that supports either more education or directly impacting patient care, we feel like that's going to overall provide benefit for the medical community at large, as well as, we say to some degree, we're also supporting the environment. We're trying to keep things out of landfills that can be used, either within the U.S. for training purposes or internationally to serve patients directly.
Yeah, Courtney, has there been any concerted effort on the part of GOMED to accrue some data? And I only ask this because the work is so fascinating that I think it would be worthwhile to put this in the format of a research letter, or original research. If you have safety data when it comes to how these equipment were utilized and outcomes in those patients, have the core team at GOMED thought about putting something of this sort together?
I think one of the biggest things we've done, and I'll say it's really, I have to give the credit to, we've partnered with a company called ViewMed. So ViewMed, I honestly had no knowledge of it prior to this, but ViewMed is an inventory tracking software that's used by many hospitals, and that's what's actually been the key to our success. Is what this allows is for us to essentially, we have a scanner and we have the programming such that I get every catheter, I'll sometimes go to a local hospital and pick up like 300 items. And to log that and track that would be extremely time consuming. So with ViewMed, we're able to scan, like at a grocery store scanner, scan in each item. And then that includes everything we need to know about that item, the manufacturer, the expiration date, the manufacturer's date, all of the details about it. And then that's made into an inventory tracking system, which then when we ship them out, we can scan them back out. So it keeps our inventory up to date, and it allows us to track where things come from, as in I can put in, this is the scanning in of everything I received from Wilson on, November 3rd of 2025. And then when we go to ship it out, as I scan it out, I label it as what the shipment is. So while we haven't per se we haven't thought of it in the way that you've mentioned, the research paper or documentation, what we do have is we can easily go back and we can identify any individual catheter. And while we can't track it all the way to it going into the body, we know exactly where we got it from and who we gave it to. And so that's, I think, unknowingly, we have a little bit of the foundation of what you're suggesting sort of built in just via our inventory management tracking.
Yes, and I only even bring this up because I think one, it will sort of provide the academic credence to GOMED, which I think should happen because of the quality of work that all of you are doing. And I think it sort of becomes it sort of lays the foundation for other groups to present and publish their data, and sort of becomes a repository and a literature where others can benefit from. So certainly if I can be of value, or I think if Upstate can be of value, Upstate Cardiology can be of value, then we would be more than happy and willing to collaborate and put this together for you. And because I do think this merits peer review in a scientific forum, and publication in a scientific forum. I think the work that you're doing is incredible. And I think if we can demonstrate certainly safety and also efficacy and lives saved, I think that that really becomes a moving story. No, not that it isn't one already, but I think it just provides that academic credence to all the effort that you put in.
Yeah, thank you. No, that sounds like a wonderful opportunity. With GOMED, we've been looking to collaborate and further do some of these, kind of publications, and not only use the data or use the equipment that we have, but also try to spur innovation. A recent exciting thing for GOMED is that we've partnered with Syracuse University's biomedical engineering students, and we are being one of their senior design capstone project clients. So GOMED is a client of Syracuse University Biomedical Engineering capstone project, and what we're working on with them is we've tasked them with designing a low resource utilizing portable essentially autoclave, such that way, just as you've alluded to, that in India they autoclave things and use them over and over again. And while there, there's not official data to support or documentation of its safety, it's the similar principle of, if this is what it takes to care for the patient, then we do that. And so that's one of the things we realize, that even in sub-Saharan Africa, to get them something that they can use, but then also the idea that if we could provide them a way of safely re-sterilizing it and then using it again and again, we may be able to further help more patients. So I think GOMED is certainly interested in both fulfilling the present day needs, but also participating in investigation of how to solve kind of future needs, and what you're alluding to with the idea with partnering with Upstate to try to publish the safety of our repurposed devices would certainly be very much aligned with what we're trying to do overall.
Yeah, no, excellent. And I think we should certainly touch base in person on this space. Let me ask you something in terms of when you were um, organizing and operationalizing this, and sort of getting in touch with sites abroad who needed the equipment. What were some of the roadblocks that you met with which you were not anticipating?
I guess part of what it is just our lack of understanding of what the different countries will and will not accept. And then the other part is, I feel very comfortable with knowing so for example, I walk into one hospital that we pick up from locally. They just put boxes and boxes of everything kind of in I literally show up to the loading dock about once a month, and they open the door to a room full of what is sort of their garbage. And so one of the issues that we're still working through is trying to figure out what of the garbage actually has value and is usable. Because what's a thing that we can use in our cath lab here or our EP lab here may be too advanced, or may require additional equipment to have it be functional. So I think that's one of our ongoing issues, is that trying to figure out we can't save and store everything. And then similarly trying to figure out along those same lines, well, if this is expired 1 month ago, that's, most people are going to be okay with that. But how long do we save something? If is it at 5 years that we say, okay, just throw it away? Is it at 2 years? And so I think that's part of what our biggest issue almost is understanding what can be used in these different countries and saving the things that are of value, and not just paying for a storage facility full of things that aren't going to ever be able to be meaningfully used. I think that was one of our issues. Another kind of issue that we actually had rapidly and luckily solved, with who's been a big supporter of ours, is Joel Dunning, who's a cardiac surgeon out of the UK. And he was one of the people that we connected with early on, who then facilitated our networking in with the Global Cardiovascular Collective. So it's been very much kind of a circuitous route of just sort of trial and error and figuring it out as we go. I think it's definitely, when I think back, it was kind of fall of 2024. So it's only been about a year that we've been officially doing this. I don't know where I thought we'd be at this point, but I don't know this is where I thought we'd be, one of those things. So it's still very much a work in progress. And right now, we're actually trying to figure out whether we want to try to maintain a central location for shipping, or whether we sort of want to, I don't want to say franchise ourselves, but a little bit have multiple different storage locations and kind of have geographically accruing equipment. So we're frankly figuring it out as we go.
Yeah, and this is fascinating. I mean, have you thought of partnering with logistical career companies like UPS and FedEx? I'm just trying to shoot for the stars, maybe land on the moon here. But I think that would be a fascinating collaboration, right, between UPS and something of the sort of DHL, UPS, FedEx, to sort of help you facilitate this. What has the team thought about that at all?
Well, the interesting thing is one of the benefits, we haven't fully explored that, but what we've noticed with some of our, we'll say, bigger partners, or other foundations that we're frequently shipping equipment with, a lot of them already have existing relationships with whatever their preferred Amazon or UPS or what have you. So some of the time we actually go to ship something and then we just ship it under their account, and they oftentimes already have arrangements based on nonprofit and that sort of thing. So we haven't fully explored those options. It's definitely something that we're thinking about, and ironically, we sort of unknowingly have in a way become the logistics coordinator for equipment for medical mission trips. So we're kind of, trying to sort things through. There are some challenges with the international shipping related to, depending on the country, customs. And so in a lot of these situations, we may be shipping things to other, like some of the stuff is being shipped directly into other countries, but some of it's actually being shipped to people who are leaving for mission trips, and they're finding they're carrying it in via their suitcase. So it's a little bit of it's one of those, I'm not sure how much we really want to know, because I suspect we may find more and more red tape, and a lot of what we're doing has already been being done by mission and medical education trips, and we're just trying to formalize the procurement and inventorying of it a little bit more formally.
Yes, there's I think there was one more question that I wanted to ask. It's sort of slipping my mind now, but it's again, fascinating what you've done so far. Um, where do you see this going, Courtney? I mean, do you plan to expand this not only? I'm sure there's a lot of waste in other specialties in all of medicine. OB, orthopedics is a big one. Do you see this expanding to other specialties other than cardiology?
We've talked about that a little bit, and we kind of started. We actually intended it to be all cardiac surgery because that's what we knew as a cardiac anesthesiologist, a cardiac surgeon, and a cardiac surgery PA. That was our comfort level. And then we quickly realized that the need is much more at the turns out, maybe EP may be the biggest, factor that we can really impact as, a pacemaker in sub-Saharan Africa is hard to come by and is life-changing, life-saving. So we've found that perhaps for these developing countries, interventional cardiology and EP are a little bit more realistic than really fully supporting cardiac surgery, or just allows us to support more places. But what we've discussed is what would be the next area to kind of expand into. And we've thought about that probably the next step would be orthopedics, as that seems to be both an arena that has expensive equipment that can be prohibitive to patients receiving care in these low and middle income countries. So we have thought about that. We've also thought about the fact that we all have full-time jobs and are trying to fit in GOMED on the side. So we're working on our hope is that once we kind of streamline our process a little bit more, the goal would be that countries or the hospitals ship to, for now, our central location where we'd have hopefully an army of volunteers ready to scan with our ViewMed tracking system, scan in the inventory, have an organized warehouse, and then via our website, letsgomed.org, that we're further optimizing that sort of approved people that we would give access to the website logins for. Basically, we would just want to vet you and make sure that what you're asking for is ending up in our desired locations, and that you're legitimately using it for for not for a profit-seeking entity. Then allowing it that you just go on our website, order what you want. Our volunteers would go grab it, box it, ship it, and it almost just continues in perpetuity behind the scenes based hopefully on volunteers, or maybe even if we reach the point of being able to have employees. So I think that's the vision, is to get to a self-sustaining standpoint where it's just a revolving door of incoming equipment and shipped out equipment, and that we really become the leader in I guess I would say product and inventory support for medical education and mission trips. And that then if we develop longstanding relationships with different hospitals or clinics, we can continue to assist in supporting them. And then I think the idea would then be to continue to expand and focus on orthopedics. And then do we move on to, obstetrics? Do we move on to even just general hospital supply? So I think that's the vision right now is functional self-sustainability for our cardiovascular support, and then further expansion into other areas of medicine.
That's fantastic. And final few minutes of the podcast, and maybe this is too premature for me to even ask, but have you come across any particular equipment which you think, or based on what the requests that you've received, you feel is direly required or needed in these countries?
Yeah, I would say right now it seems the biggest need, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, is largely EP related. There's just such a dire need for EP related devices. And additionally, I think another, big ticket or highly desirable stuff is anything for cath labs. The, balloons, diagnostic catheters, all those things are just prohibitively expensive for a lot of these countries. And so I think those are what we've been seeing to be the high priority. And then I think, that's our biggest focus right now. We do get a lot of that equipment, and we don't worry as much about the diagnostic casts, balloons. We get some, stents, but then we're a little bit more leery about if that's staying in the body, just as we've discussed. is it really expired? Is it safe? We don't know. So we feel a measure of comfort in something that maybe enters the body and is only there transiently versus things that are put permanently in place. So that's what we're working to further understand what are the highly desirable and challenging pieces of equipment or disposables or what have you that are the biggest impact for these mission trips and education trips and low income countries.
Yes, so yeah, excellent. This is incredible work, and I'm grateful that Parallax can do its part to support and get the word out for GOMED. We will make sure that we include. Is it letsgomed.org?
Yes, yep. Our website is letsgomed.org, letsgomed.org. And people can go on there, read more about us, find more information out about us. We're working on setting up even ways to like discussion boards so that people can discuss upcoming trips and look for volunteers and need. And of course, I can't help but say that you can also, anybody that goes on the website can also provide, donate if they would be feeling so inclined.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is for a great cause, and our donations are literally going to save lives here. We'll make sure that we put this in our show notes as well. And for the listenership, you heard it from Dr. Maxey-Jones, the address for the website. Make sure to check our show notes, and encourage you to donate for this incredible cause. Any closing remarks for the episode, Courtney? Anything that you think we haven't touched upon or discussed here?
No, I would just like to thank you so much for the opportunity. I know my co-founders and partners Connor and Dr. Nadeem were unable to join, but they were also very appreciative. And I think our final thoughts are we're learning as we go. So we're interested, or we're a coalition of the willing. So if there's anybody with suggestions, insights, ideas, we're open to, we don't have our path set in stone. So we're open to support and ideas, and really anyone that wants to be a part of it. We're ready, willing, and able to have more people join us.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And University of Michigan has did something similar with pacemakers in India. So I'll see if I can do my part in connecting you with that team. I'm sure you can exchange notes and learn from one another. And for those of you who are listening, thanks again for tuning in. We are closing in soon to be released our episode 150, which will be the very first episode in 2026. So it'll be the 8th year of Parallax. So for all these years, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. We appreciate your feedback. If you have any questions for myself or for Dr. Maxey-Jones, feel free to write to us. We'll make sure that she gets those emails. If you have any feedback for us, do share it on social media, on LinkedIn, on X, on Instagram, what have you. We'll make sure that our guests, get to read your feedback. And if you have any suggestions on on guests similar to Dr. Maxey-Jones who you want to hear from, do let us know, and we'll make sure that we get them on Parallax. And until other Monday, thank you everyone for listening.
We hope you enjoyed today's podcast, produced by Radcliffe Cardiology in association with makeadent.org. We aim to bring you a new angle of all things cardiology every second week. Review us on your favourite podcast app, or send your comments or questions to podcast@radcliffe-group.com. To view the series, head to radcliffecardiology.com/podcasts/parallax. Thanks for listening.